Honestly, I had no idea how those other YouTubers do the thing where they somehow magically summon the string of 1,000 songs to scream at the screen for the first 10 seconds and actually make a proper intro here. Like, I swear Mr. Beast has to be doing lines of pre-workout before every video, just like... Yeah, realistically, I have no idea how to get out of that. Welcome back, everybody. So if you don't know, I've actually been getting back to this game recently, and there was one little issue that affects realistically only kind of like a few people that are really big into crafting, but also at the same time, realistically, the entire actual Crossout market here, and that is price corridors. Now, for a select few of you, that will send shivers down your spine as something that will absolutely ruin your day. But at the same time, a lot of you may not know what it is. So let me quickly elucidate what that actually is. So any item in this game can have a minimum and maximum price at which it can be bought and sold for. Now, a lot of you are probably very familiar with the prices that you see here when you right-click it. This is the instantaneous buy order and the instantaneous sell order, respectively. So you can buy something right now, say this large wheel, for 1929 coins. And inversely, if you want to sell it right now, you could sell it instantaneously for 16. Alternatively, you could put in a buy order or put a sell order in at a slightly different price and wait for someone to fulfill that. So say, for example, I wanted to sell a large wheel, but I didn't want to sell it at the 16 coin price. What I could do is that I can sit here and sell it at the 0.298, that is 1 cent lower than what is actually available on the sell side of things, wait for it to be sold, and congratulations, I just made myself a little extra coinage on top of what I was already going to make. And so, very simple, makes sense. But at the same time, you also notice that you theoretically should be able to just buy and sell at whatever price you want. So I wanted to sell this wheel, I should be able to go all the way up to 99999 coins and be just fine with it. However, that's actually not the case. The maximum that I can sell this wheel for, at least right now, is 2248 coins. And I cannot go any higher here. So say I wanted to put a price in here for 999. You can see it won't even let me finish typing it in. It automatically corrects it to the lowest amount. Alternatively, if I wanted to sell it at even a rock bottom price of 13.60 or even lower, I wanted to go to like say 10, it won't even let me put in 10 before it changes. So I want to say I want to put it in for 10 coins here. Congratulations. It's going to say, actually, you can't do that. You can only sell it for a minimum of 13.60. And so that's price corridors. It exists for every single item in this game, whether or not it's a cosmetic, if it's a weapon, it's scrap metal, it exists for every single item. Now, if you actually come to the original post that was talking about this, that came out over 4 years ago, yeah, you're welcome. You feel really fucking old now, don't you? But essentially what this was, it was essentially to stop credit card fraud. And it's kind of a complicated way of actually doing it, but let's just kind of, I guess, paint it out a little bit. Say, for example, there's person 1 and there's person 2 here. This person 1 here has a stolen credit card they got from somebody here, and they use it to buy a bunch of coins. And if you actually go over to the Crossout section of the game, you actually can buy a bunch of coins here for cross crowns. So you can buy, say, this 10,000 coin pack for 2,000 cross crowns, which is approximately $200. Now, this is not nearly the most effective way to buy things with money, but is also probably the easiest because it just translates directly into coinage. That's now this person has a bunch of coins, and these guys are willing to sell it for way less because this was gotten through ill-gained means. So to them, this was worth nothing. In fact, they could probably sell this to, 10,000 coin packs and maybe sell it for like, oh, I don't know, we'll sell it for like $5 or whatever it may be. And so this person over here sees this and they're like, oh my god, I want to buy this. Yes, this is so cheap. This is stupidly cheap. So I'll buy it. Let's go. Big check mark. The thing is, though, how do you actually manage to sell these packs and get the coins from point A to point B to this person? Well, one way you can do it is through the market itself. Now you're asking yourself, well, how does that really work? So now these people have a bunch of cheap coins here, and this person has this. What you can do is that you can go over here, go into your inventory, and find some item here that doesn't really have a whole lot of people actually buying or selling it. So for example, this item here, not a whole lot of buy orders, not a whole lot of sell orders. So historically what would happen is that someone would come over here, buy up all these items, and then they would have like, 10 or so dark blue lamps here, and then they would sell it for like, say, 10,000 coins, and then the person with the compromised account with all of these coins in it would then buy this item up here for this huge markup, and this would effectively transfer the coins over to this person, and now they would have thousands of coins selling really cheap, crappy cosmetics or stickers and just making a huge bucket ton of profit. Now, of course, this wouldn't really happen like that. It'd probably be a bit more sophisticated, because if you tried doing that exactly like I just described, your account will get immediately flagged for suspicious behavior and probably banned. But that's kind of like generally how it works. And the thing is too, you're asking yourself, well, why would Crossout really care about this? They get the money either way. Well, the thing is, once this credit card gets figured out as being fraudulently taken and used to buy all of these coins, all of this gets charged back to the company that originally allowed this purchase, which is, again, Targem. So Targem would be on the hook for all of these fraudulent credit card purchases. And the thing is, if they want to accept credit cards, they kind of have to deal with this reality. Otherwise, the credit card just won't simply allow them to use it. You'll have to actually physically mail them money if you wanted to get Crossout coins, which, would take you a lot of money and also make them not a whole lot of money as well. So that's why this whole system came into place here. The thing is, though, this causes some weird shenanigans when it comes to the market when you're dealing with kind of low velocity items. Now, what I mean by low velocity is that I essentially just mean items that are not really selling so frequently. They're only selling like maybe once in a blue moon or once in a while. If they don't sell very often, the price corridor kind of stops functioning correctly, because the price corridor is based off the actual buying and selling of individual parts. So what's happening when there's not a lot of parts here is that you get parts that kind of end up in weird stagnation territory. And the classic example right now is the freight container. This freight container, since it's being readily available for free for doing the Steel Troopers challenges right now, should be going for dirt cheap, because it's essentially given out for really easy activities. But you can see here, it's only being offered at somewhere in the neighborhood of 586.45 coins, which is a lot of money. That's the price of, say, a couple of epic tier weapons. That is insanely high price, especially considering that the contents inside this thing are not really even that good. There's only like 1 or 2 items that are worth over 1,000, and even then, getting this pumpkin is extremely rare. So you probably get it like once every 100 containers. So the actual like value and risk of this is way overinflated. But it can't really change, because the issue is no one's willing to buy this. No one is willing to buy this at this current price. And if I tried to buy it for super cheap, congratulations, I can't. This is the lowest price that I can buy. The lowest price is also conveniently the price that everyone's willing to sell at. So I can't say buy this for 60 coins. It's going to be like, actually, tough shit, gotta buy this real quickly. And it's like, no, I don't want to. It's worth not nearly that much. And the thing is too, this is not just limited to low value, low velocity items like that. This applies to every single item in this game, even wheels, even weapons, even hardware modules, even cabins. Anything that can be bought and sold that has a price corridor will have weird situations like this crop up. So for example, say I'm trying to craft something, like I go on to Crossout database and I'm like, oh, sweet, I would love to craft the Charge or the Oculus or the Pilgrim here. And I go over and try to actually buy all the individual items that make these X, Y, or Z containers. Well, the issue is that then sometimes these rare or special tier items, I try to buy them for ultra cheap, like say around like 1 or 2 coins higher, or even like a half cent higher. I can't buy it for any higher or sell it any lower. I have to sell it for way less or way higher, artificially reducing the amount of coins that I get through a sale. And on top of that, this also means that realistically the price can't actually meet what the demand is. So if you don't know the classic like supply and demand graph, let me quickly draw this out. So when it comes to classic supply and demand graphs, you'll actually see this if you take any sort of like business or accounting class. But essentially, suppliers are people that are actually sitting here, going into the actual game itself, buying all the necessary items to make a part, and then crafting it and selling it onto the market. So what essentially this graph is saying is that for any sort of given price, there is a certain amount of people that are actually willing to build it. And so at very high prices, many people are going to be willing to actually craft this and sell it onto the market. But inversely, when it gets super cheap, no one's really going to want to buy and actually craft these items, because it just takes way too much resources. Alternatively, on the demand side of things, when it comes to people actually buying on the market, so for other people, what happening is that when the price is super cheap, yeah, of course I'll buy it. It's fantastic. Assuming it still works and it's a great product, great, I'll take it, I'll buy it, and I'll be happy with it. The downside, though, what ends up happening if the price of it gets way too high, well, it's like, actually, you know what, I'd rather buy this instead and save a bunch of money, or hey, I physically cannot buy it because it costs way too much. Like, say, for example, with a lot of the relic tier parts, those cost way too much. And so what the issue with price corridors is, say, for example, these like demand shift lines, these supply lines, can change all the time depending on the availability of it or the actual nature. So this actual point here is never set in stone. This can shift down here, this can shift up here. It happens all the time depending on balance changes and supply changes. And that's what we see here when it came to the freight container. All of a sudden, there was a huge supply all of a sudden delivered onto the market. And so when there's a whole lot more supply, this just shifts way, way, way down. All of a sudden now the price is just super, 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 super low. And so now the price of this will come all the way down here, and people are not going to be willing to nearly pay for this. But with the price corridors, the issue is this cannot happen. There cannot be a change in the price, especially when there's dramatic changes like this, and it can't be very responsive to the market. And so what ends up happening to a long portion of the time is that eventually you'll have a situation where a lot of players will try to buy something and actually sell it at an appropriate demand cycle here, but no. Instead, you'll end either with an artificially high price or an artificially low price, and then either someone's going to lose a lot of money or someone's going to gain a lot of money. Or at the same time, there can also just be stagnation and nothing ever gets sold, so it just kind of stays in limbo. And so now all of a sudden, the actual velocity, the actual rate at which things are being bought and sold and crafted on the marketplace, goes way down. And so now the craft section of this game, the craft/selling marketing side of this game, kind of just goes out the window. Now, admittedly, this is kind of a sort of a minor issue. For the majority of parts that can be bought, sold, and crafted, you can still relatively do the tactics of buying with a little bit of coinage and selling with a little bit of coinage and just still make out just fine. But the thing is, this issue kind of also breaks down because, again, for price corridors to work, you need a lot of players buying and selling on the auction house. Now, what ends up happening when the average player count goes from 3,000 from 9,000, I should say, down to 3,000. Well, congratulations, you have a lot less people buying, selling, and crafting on the market. And congratulations, price corridors get a little bit wonky again. And additionally, they also are kind of doing weird things with their season now because the season itself no longer really prioritizes buying, crafting, and making all these walker legs here. So for example here, if I was to try to actually sit here and craft and buy and sell these legs in accordance to whatever the market demands, well, the issue is that for the people who bought this battle pass here, they automatically are given one of these flamingo legs. And on top of that, they can't even trade these things. So people are just artificially left with legs they can't use, so the demand is basically zero, and supply is also effectively zero as well because these things can't be moved, except for the very limited amount of legs that you're actually able to craft at all, at least during this event. When the event actually ends, supply dries up again, prices shoot up, and then all of a sudden, now there's a bit wonkiness where even if these things get balanced and changed again, well, now I can't really make it because, you know, people had to be in the season, participate in the season, and then they'd be able to actually create it. But once the season goes away, there's not really an option to do that anymore. So they can have like two compounding issues where you have lack of supply due to the weird seasonality of the games and the battle passes, but then you also have the weird demand side because no one's going to want to actually buy and sell and craft anything because Targem has to sell these seasons, and so to make these things less wonky and more actually worthwhile to make and sell, they have to make these things fused so they can no longer be traded on the market. So what does that actually end up doing to the player in the very end of things here? Well, it essentially means that a larger and larger portion of the items in this game will eventually start getting into this weird limbo state where no one's really going to be able to sell these legs for lower cost profit-wise because no one's buying them since demand is essentially zero. And supply is never really going to be able to force a bunch of legs onto the market at super cheap prices, for one, because the corridor can't adjust, and then secondly, because supply is artificially constrained. And so ultimately that means there's just going to be less crafting, less buying, and less things to actually make in this game. And then secondly, there's also just going to be potential for either way artificially high prices that players can make things less accessible, or artificially low prices, so there's going to be basically none to buy on the marketplace. And on top of that, this solution that they implemented is not foolproof, as evidenced by forum posts like this, where we can see basic tier paints like this are selling for nearly 33,000 coins, which, if you don't know, if you don't recall from a little bit earlier here, 33,000 coins is equivalent to around $600. And remember, you can buy these coin packs an unlimited amount of times. Regular packs can only be purchased once, but these can be purchased over and over and over and over and over again. So this is clearly an example of someone then trying to manipulate the market in order to actually offload a bunch of coins onto a target account and then make a bunch of money that way. So realistically, this is kind of like a meshing of like 5 or 6 issues all intertwined to kind of create a very messy system that is also just one that people really do not like, because there's multiple forum posts with many comments going over why they're not a big fan of this whole system. And so realistically, I think price corridors, while they may have initially helped with reducing the amount of credit card fraud going on in this game, it kind of comes at the sacrifice of making the less of the game available to actually craft, ride, and destroy, do the things that people actually want to do. This kind of artificially hinders the market that doesn't really need to exist here. There are other alternatives that could actually go about in this whole crafting scene. They could be like, hey, say, for new accounts here, you can't buy and sell in the market for like 2 weeks. Or, hey, if you're brand new on this game here and you just bought like $200 worth of coins here, we're going to put a temporary pause on your account so that you can't, like, you know, say, do price manipulation. Or hey, can we at least do two-factor authentication before we allow you to buy, you know, $1,000 worth of packs or coins or whatever. There could be a variety of other methods they could do to kind of clamp down on fraud and credit card fraud. This just seems kind of like one haphazard way of doing it. I can understand, you know, say the reason why they implemented all these price corridors is because, hey, we were getting like tens of thousands of dollars of chargebacks, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of chargeback every month because of this. They'd be like, all right, cool. That's understandable, but then price corridors is not necessarily a solution, because if that comes at the cost of making your game worse overall to play and interact with a little bit, then at some point, that could just mean a less enjoyable experience, and people are then going to leave, and then that could also just end up with less money in the same way. But I guess it's kind of like a balancing act here. What do you want to do? Do you want to do a system where you have to have a lot more moderators to check over purchases to make sure that things are going swimmingly and cause less manipulation? Or do you go with a more automated system that's a bit more scalable and way cheaper in the long run? Hard to say, but I think that's really going to be all for me. That's my kind of frustrations with the pricing corridor system here, and I think maybe a few solutions that could help try to alleviate that. What did you guys think about this down below? Let me know. And on that, guys, I want to thank you all again, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.